When I inherited my grandparents' $900,000 estate, I discreetly placed it into a trust, just as a precaution. Last week, my brother arrived with our mother, both beaming, declaring, "We've had the house transferred to my name. You're out by Friday." I just grinned and replied, "You really believe I'd let that slide?" 2 days later, they returned with movers, only to freeze when they saw who stood on the porch, clutching a folder. Chapter 1. The unwelcome arrival. The day began like any other. The house still carried the faint scent of the pine polish my grandfather swore by, and morning light streamed through the kitchen window, warming the sturdy maple table where he used to read his daily news. But that calm was shattered by the sound of car doors slamming outside. Peering out, I saw my brother, Ethan, striding up the path, our mother at his side. Behind them, 2 movers carried empty crates, smirking as if they'd already claimed the place. When I opened the door, Ethan's grin was sharp as a blade. "Well, little sibling," he said, waving a folder, "sorry to tell you, but this house isn't yours anymore. Mom and I got the deed signed over to me. You're gone by Friday." Mother folded her arms, smug. "You should have seen this coming. You never contributed to this family. Ethan's the one who deserves it." The movers glanced at each other, already eyeing the furniture like vultures circling prey. But I didn't waver, I didn't argue, I just let a slow smile spread across my face. "You really think I'd let that happen?" Ethan's confidence wavered for a moment. "What's that supposed to mean?" I stepped aside, revealing a figure waiting on the porch, a tall man in a dark suit holding a thick folder. His badge glinted in the sunlight, impossible to miss. Ethan froze, Mother's smug expression crumbled. The man holding the folder wasn't just anyone, he was the trustee of the estate, the only one who knew the truth about what I'd done with my inheritance. Chapter 2. The trust revealed. The man in the suit stepped forward, straightening his tie with deliberate ease. "Good morning, I'm Daniel Holt, trustee of this estate." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Trustee, what are you talking about?" "The deed's in my name, signed and notarized. It's done." Daniel offered a faint, almost sympathetic smile. "Then you've made a grave error. This estate hasn't been yours to claim since the day your grandfather's will was enacted. The property was placed into a private trust." Mother's brow furrowed, her confidence fracturing. "What terms?" I spoke up, my voice calm. "The terms you never bothered to check because you were too busy celebrating Ethan's so-called victory. The trust doesn't just cover the house. It holds all the estate's assets. And per Grandpa's instructions, any attempt to falsely claim ownership triggers an immediate forfeiture." Daniel opened the folder, revealing signed documents and court-stamped approvals. "Which means," he continued, "this property and all related assets are now legally locked. No sale, no transfer, and definitely no occupation by unauthorized individuals." The movers, sensing the shift, lowered their crates and began retreating toward their truck. Ethan's face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. You can't just—" "Oh, we can," Daniel cut in firmly. "In fact, I've already alerted the authorities. You'll need to explain why you tried to forge ownership of a trust-protected property." Mother's legs wobbled slightly. You planned this. You knew we'd try something." I met her gaze. "I didn't know. I counted on it." Her face fell. Ethan muttered a curse, and for the first time I felt the balance of power tip firmly in my favor. Chapter 3. The Failed Gambit *. Ethan's voice trembled with desperation. "This can't be real. I signed the documents. The notary stamped them. That makes it legal." Daniel shook his head calmly. "A notary stamp doesn't override the law. You tried to claim a property that was never yours to begin with. That's forgery at best, fraud at worst. You're facing serious charges." Mother's face paled. "But this was meant to secure our future. You don't understand. We need this house." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "You needed me too, didn't you? But when I asked for your support, you and Ethan ridiculed me, treated me like a stranger in my own family. You called me weak, said I'd never be clever enough to handle Grandpa's legacy." Mother's lips quivered, but she had no response. Daniel handed me the folder. "Everything's in motion. By tomorrow, the sheriff will deliver official notices. They'll have no access to this property or any assets tied to the trust." Ethan stepped closer, eyes burning. "You think this makes you the victor? This isn't over. I'll fight you in court. I'll drag this out until—" "Until what?" I interrupted sharply. "Until you bankrupt yourself with legal fees. Until the news spreads that you tried to swindle your own family out of their inheritance. Go ahead, fight. I've got the law and the truth on my side." He froze, realizing his bluff had collapsed. The movers, done with the drama, started hauling their empty crates back to the truck. Mother sank into a porch chair, her eyes hollow, whispering, "What have we done?" I stood tall in the doorway, holding the folder like a shield. Exactly what I expected you to, and now you'll face the consequences. Chapter 4. The courtroom showed on asterisk 2 weeks later we stood in family court. The room hummed with reporters, drawn by the public filings Daniel had cleverly allowed to leak. A greedy sibling and mother scheming over a $900,000 estate was the kind of scandal the media loved. Ethan walked in with a budget lawyer he could barely afford, mother clinging to his arm like a lifeline. Across the aisle, Daniel sat beside me, steady and unshakable, his leather briefcase a silent warning on the table. The judge adjusted her glasses. We're here regarding the estate of Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. The petitioners claim a valid transfer of the estate to Ethan Thompson. Daniel stood. Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to present Exhibit A. He opened the folder and slid forward the trust documents. The irrevocable trust, signed and notarized 5 years ago by my client's grandparents, placing all assets under their sole authority. This document predates any attempted transfer by the petitioners. The judge reviewed the papers, her expression hardening. If valid, this renders any attempted transfer void. Ethan's lawyer leapt up. Your Honor, my client believed he had full authority based on his mother's assurances. Daniel cut in, his tone sharp. Belief doesn't override the law, fraud doesn't grant authority, and coercion, attempting to forcibly remove my client from their home, is not only illegal, it's criminal. The courtroom murmured. Daniel tapped the folder. We also submit security footage and medical reports from that day, proving my client was assaulted. Charges have already been filed. Mother covered her face. Ethan stammered, No, this can't. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Based on these documents, the trust is valid. The petitioners had no legal claim to the estate and their actions verge on criminal fraud. This court upholds full ownership to the respondent. I also recommend the district attorney review charges of assault and attempted fraud. The words hit like a storm. Ethan's jaw dropped, his confidence shattered. Mother sobbed into her hands. Daniel leaned back, satisfied. Told you, he murmured to me. I glanced at Ethan and Mother. They looked so small now, their tower of arrogance crumbling under the weight of truth. And I realized this wasn't just about the house. It was about respect. About proving that betrayal always carries a cost. Chapter 5. The fallout the court ruling was only the beginning. What followed over the next few weeks was a total unraveling, and I didn't have to lift a finger. First, Ethan's job. His employer didn't take kindly to the headlines. Man accused of assault in family estate scam. HR cited conduct unbecoming, and within days he was out of work. The smug grin he'd worn when he tried to evict me was gone, replaced by panic as bills piled up. Then came Mother. She'd always been the queen of her social circle, boasting about Ethan's supposed success and my alleged failures. But when the truth emerged, that she'd conspired with Ethan to steal from me, her friends stopped returning her calls. Invitations vanished. At church, whispers trailed her like shadows. For the first time, she had no stage to perform on. Then came the final blow. Daniel called one morning, a grin in his voice. Remember how they bragged about refinancing the house in Ethan's name? The bank caught the fraud. The loan's been reversed and their credit is ruined. They can't even rent without a cosigner now. By month's end, they weren't living in the grand home they dreamed of. They were in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the rough side of town, their arguments loud enough to draw neighbor complaints. Meanwhile, I stood on the porch of my estate, watching the sunset over the fields my grandparents had fought to preserve. It was never about the money. It was about honor, family, and the quiet pride of protecting what was rightfully mine. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Please help us, we're out of options. I didn't respond. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's silence, letting those who betrayed you sink in the consequences they crafted themselves. Epilogue, the heritage weeks after Ethan and Mother faded into obscurity. I sat alone in the study of the estate. The same maple desk where Grandpa used to review his accounts now held the trust papers, the documents that had safeguarded everything. In the bottom drawer, I found a worn notebook, Grandpa's careful handwriting filling the pages. On the first page he'd written, "This land isn't for one person, it's for every sacrifice our family made to keep it alive. Guard it, even from your own kin if you must." For years, I hadn't understood why he'd phrased it that way. Now it was crystal clear. He'd seen the damage greed could cause, and he trusted me to hold the line when the time came. Outside, my daughter ran across the lawn with the dog, her laughter echoing through the air. Watching her, I realized this wasn't just about punishing Ethan or rejecting Mother. It was about ensuring my daughter inherited not resentment, but resilience. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon, raised it to the stars, and whispered, "It's safe, Grandpa. They'll never touch it again." In the quiet that followed, I could almost hear his deep, proud chuckle, a man whose legacy had outlasted betrayal. Was this justice perfectly served, or should the storm have struck harder? Share your thoughts below. I read everyone. Hit like if you hunger for fairness and pass this story to someone who needs its spark. Subscribe to Sarah's stories because here, betrayals don't rest. They hunt their makers. Every shadow holds a reckoning. Every facade cracks. Every betrayal meets its answer. Stay vigilant, stay steadfast, stay tuned.